You don't overcome panic by trying to never panic again. You overcome it by understanding what is happening in your nervous system and then changing the way you respond to those sensations, and then teaching your nervous system that what is actually happening is safe. In this video, I'm going to walk you through what panic actually is, why understanding panic is so important, why panic attacks happen, how panic attacks manifest in the body, how our reactions can unintentionally keep the cycle going, and then how we can begin breaking that cycle. Now, panic attacks are incredibly uncomfortable, but the sensations themselves are part of the body's built-in survival response. When your heart starts racing, or you get sweaty palms, or you feel a little bit lightheaded or dizzy, or you start to get vertigo, or the walls feel like they're closing in on you, these are all part of your body's normal reactions to panic. These are things that the human body is designed to do. The problem really begins when we become afraid of those sensations themselves. When you have a sensation, it causes fear, which then brings more adrenaline, which then causes even stronger sensations, which then causes more fear, and then we start avoiding. And eventually you might start reorganizing your entire life just to avoid these sensations. So the question is, how do we fix it? The truth is, the more desperately you try to avoid panic, the more important your brain thinks that panic is. And you see, recovery isn't about learning how to shut down every single sensation. Recovery is about learning, hey, I can experience this sensation and know that it's not an emergency. If you don't know me, my name is Danny, and I help women get out of survival mode so they can start living their best life. I am not a doctor or a therapist, and this is not medical advice. I am just sharing what I have learned from overcoming panic and anxiety, and I want to share it with you because I was at a point in my life where I never thought I would get out of the hole and the cycle of panic, and I just want to let you know that it is possible. And so I want to share these tips with you in hopes that maybe one or two of these things can help so that you can start living your best life and getting back to it. So first, let's get into what exactly is panic and anxiety. Anxiety is not inherently bad. Our body needs it. Our body needs that fight or flight. We need to understand when things are dangerous. It is a normal human emotional mechanism. If you encountered an actual dangerous situation, you would want your body alarming you and letting you know that you need to react and respond. That is what it's actually there for. A panic attack is a sudden surge of fear, usually accompanied by intense physical and physiological symptoms. What's happening a lot of times is that alarm system is activating when there's not actually an external threat. So let's say you're driving down the street and all of a sudden your car gets hit from the side, out of nowhere, out of the blue, and you get injured. Well, once you get better and you recover, now maybe you have a fear of getting in your car because getting in the car equals something bad will happen. That's what's going on in your brain. And then you think, well, if I get in my car, I might get in an accident because that's what happened last time. So then your brain starts to create this fear. And then the fear, if you keep feeding it, and let's say you keep avoiding driving and you keep avoiding that particular road maybe, or you avoid driving altogether, that fear is intensified because your body and your brain start to think, okay, driving equals bad. Driving equals we get hurt. Driving is danger. Escaping is safety. We are safe when we don't drive. And let's say you do get in your car and all of a sudden you start experiencing those fear symptoms. Then even thinking about driving starts to activate that fear. So what you do is you start avoiding. So now we're avoiding driving because of the fear. So let's talk about why understanding panic matters. Because we can't change our relationship with something that we fundamentally do not quite understand. When these sensations feel mysterious and new, they of course are going to feel dangerous. But understanding the body's alarm response gives us another interpretation. My alarm system is activated. This is a little uncomfortable, but I understand what's happening and I understand I'm safe. We're not going to treat it as an emergency. You see, having the knowledge removes the mystery, which unintentionally will remove the fear. And once we remove the fear, the panic has no place to go. Let's talk about what exactly is happening inside the body. So your brain detects a threat, whether that threat is actually present or perceived. The sympathetic nervous system activates, and then stress hormones like adrenaline start to prepare the body to respond. You get the faster heartbeat, the faster breathing, the sweating, the shaking, the tunnel vision, the intrusive thoughts, all of it. Then we misinterpret those sensations, which causes more fear, which causes more sensations, which causes more fear, and then we're in this feedback loop. So when we have a negative experience, our brain can start associating maybe certain places or situations or sensations as dangerous, which causes that fear loop. Maybe your first panic attack happened while driving to the grocery store, and even though that panic attack ended, your body thinks that it's going to happen again, so it tries to avoid. This is sometimes described as the fear of fear. So then we end up in this avoidance trap because driving caused this panic attack, but as soon as we stopped driving, the panic went away. So now our brain thinks that driving equals dangerous, so we should avoid it. Your brain essentially thinks, good thing we escaped. See, I told you driving is dangerous. Avoidance can unintentionally reinforce fear, and this can happen with driving or flying or getting in an elevator or crowded places and so many other things. I've heard of it happening while exercising, being alone, traveling to unfamiliar places. The potential is endless. Eventually, you're not only just avoiding certain situations, but you're avoiding the possibility that something may cause panic. So the real question is how do we start breaking that cycle? Well, I'm gonna tell you. Step one is we have to understand the response. We have to say, I know what my body is doing and I trust that I'm okay. Step two, stop treating every sensation like an emergency. Because now that we understand what is happening in our body, we can also start to understand that it is actually not dangerous and it's not an emergency. Instead of immediately escaping or checking your symptoms on Google, which I would highly recommend to never do, we're sitting in the discomfort and we're trusting that we're okay. We want to allow the sensation to exist no matter how uncomfortable it is, and we want to let it know that we're not afraid of it. Which brings us into step three, which is to just lean into the experience. And this does not mean forcing yourself into overwhelming situations. This means dipping your toes in little by little into uncomfortable situations until you start to gain a little more ground of the situation. And the more we dip our toes in and the further we get into those waters, the easier it becomes. When it's appropriate and safe, we want to practice staying instead of fleeing. So what we need to do is we need to give our body and our brain a new experience. Essentially, your nervous system needs new evidence. Your old experience is driving gave me panic, so I escaped, and then I had relief. We want to create a new experience where driving equals I had some panic, but I stayed, and the panic eventually went away, and then we were okay. And we survived. These repeated experiences teach you I can have anxiety without escaping. And then eventually what happens is the anxiety itself just loses its power and it goes away. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, the goal isn't to never experience anxiety. Recovery doesn't necessarily mean that you'll never experience anxiety again, because it's part of human nature. It's never gonna go away. What it actually means is that if anxiety shows up, you know how to handle it. And learning how to handle it is essentially the freedom, because it magically goes away on its own once you learn how to handle it. Because when you're learning how to handle it, you're teaching your nervous system that you're okay. And when you feel okay, you're not nervous anymore. And then you're in this cycle of positivity where it starts to break down. And this is really where we start living our life again without trying to work around the anxiety or the panic, because we're not afraid anymore. Because what's happening is the more you fear panic, the more power you're giving it. The more you avoid panic, the more you're teaching your brain that this thing is actually dangerous. So when you start understanding what's happening and you stop treating the sensations as dangerous, you're letting your brain know that you're okay. You see, the more you fear panic, the more power you give it. And the more you try to avoid panic, the more you're telling your brain that it's dangerous. But when we learn the physiology about what's actually happening, we can then start telling our brain, okay, I understand what's happening in my body. I understand it's not dangerous. And I understand that we can sit here and be okay. Then we can tell ourselves, we don't need to run from this. Because every time you just continue to live your life despite anxiety, you're giving your brain another piece of evidence that you can do this. And here's the main message. You don't need to wait until you feel completely fearless to start living your life, because in actual reality, that's just never gonna happen. We're never gonna get there. Recovery looks like doing the things little by little that make you a little anxious, but you're teaching your body that you can respond to it no matter what is happening. And you're teaching your brain that this is okay and that we're okay. And the first step really starts by dipping your toes into maybe a level 1 or a level 2, something that gives you a slight panic or slight anxiety. I would say definitely start there and see how you respond, and work on sitting in the moment and sitting in the panic and not worrying about the panic before it happens. And even if a panic attack happens, you sit there and you tell yourself, I'm okay, we're gonna let this panic ride, and soon enough it'll be over, because your body has a wonderful way of not being able to panic forever. Your body has only so much adrenaline that it can dump, and eventually it gets to the point where it stops panicking and then you can ease up. So the point here is really we dip our toes in, we sit in that sensation, we sit in the panic, and we understand that we're okay. And once we start feeling a little more comfortable with the sensation, we start moving up to our level 3 or our level 4, maybe something that causes a little more anxiety, and then we conquer those. And then after we conquer those, we get to our levels 6, 7, 8, and then we see how that feels. And before you know it, you're doing your level 10 and you're not even thinking about anxiety anymore. It's not even a question on your brain. Want to move from how do I make sure I don't panic to even if I feel the panic, I don't have to let it control what I do. And that's the most important piece. And that's where panic begins losing its power. So I know this was just sort of a high level overview, but in my next video, I really want to dive into how we can get to this place that I'm talking about, this place of bliss where your panic is gone. And I really want to dive into that. So if you found this video helpful, please let me know below. Once again, my name is Danny, and I will see you next time. Bye.